Hi, I'm Wade Hansen. I've been selling luxury real estate in Minnesota and Wisconsin for over 23 years. My entire career has been spent protecting my clients from misinformation and unethical practices by those not looking out for their best interests. This podcast will give you the raw truth about everything real estate so you can make solid, informed decisions about the biggest investment of your lifetime. This is the Raw Real Estate Podcast.
The first thing we're going to talk about is to the people watching. Whose hair looks cooler, yours or mine?
We'll have to post a poll on social media.
A little bit on that. This is hang on. This is the shortest my hair has been in 25 years. So I'm trying to keep up with your hip look.
Fresh haircut just for me.
Well, it seems that's what happened.
Wow.
So anyway.
What an honor.
Anyway, moving on. I'm sorry.
So, the name of my podcast is Raw Real Estate, and I don't think there's anybody more raw and more candid than you. So to have you on as a guest, and my first guest, I think fits the bill very, very well. You offer some tremendous, unique insights, I think, into the real estate industry, and you're somebody that's not afraid to share those insights and just be candid about it. So I want to talk a little bit first about your background, and then I want to jump into just kind of real estate, where it was, where it is, and where you think it's going. So I've read your book. I know you've had a tough upbringing and some unique stories and unique background as you got into real estate. So maybe share a little bit about you, how you got into real estate. And
the book is called The Reward of Knowing. It was a New York Times bestseller, and the money from the book goes to our charitable organization, the Results Foundation. So if anything I say piques your curiosity, get a copy of the book and your money will go to a good cause. My background is from Northeast Minneapolis, very blue collar. I grew up in a family that was like many of the families in Northeast Minneapolis. My mom and dad were wonderful people, but they also had a drinking problem. And so some days it was heaven on earth, and other days it was, what happens when people are intoxicated or dependent. So that's how I grew up. And it was not like, oh my gosh, your parents are so weird. My parents were 10 times better than most of the parents in Northeast Minneapolis, because my dad never missed mass and he had a job, and mom was a stay-at-home mom, and so everything was good. It was just I was exposed to chemical dependency at a pretty young age. And here's something ironic for you. The two things that I disliked the most about my dad was chemically dependent and violent. And by 13, I was chemically dependent and violent, which just makes you scratch your head how you emulate what you don't like. It's a real peculiar trend, but that's who I was, and that's what happened, and kind of weird.
And you found real estate.
I got straight. I was so lucky. I got in so much trouble. I got straight when I was 23, got my first real job. With a real job, I bought a house. True story. It was about a $5,000 house in Northeast Minneapolis, and I gutted it and put it back together. And I went, maybe I should get a real estate license and sell it. So since I had a house to sell, I decided to get a real estate license to sell it. And at the time, I was doing some consulting work for the government on housing and energy conservation. And I got my real estate license and said, I think I'll do this. So that's how I got into it.
And you've been in it for almost 40 years?
78, I got licensed.
Okay. I was born in 77, so.
Yeah.
So why did you choose to become an owner of a firm? Obviously, there's the big differences between selling real estate, owning a firm, and growing the way you've grown.
It's kind of a dorky story if you want it. So my late business partner, Bill Saunders, there would be no RE/MAX results without Bill, and there would be no John Collopy broker-owner without Bill. He was a good 10 years older than I was and really educated me on the world. And we're at Coldwell Banker. I was in management, and he was the number 2 guy in the company. And the number 1 guy got transferred to Ohio or some darn thing. And we were at the meeting where we presumed Bill was going to be made the head of Coldwell Banker. And instead, they stiffed him and put somebody in front of him. And the guy they put in front of him had a similar job as I had. And I knew him for years, and I liked him, but I couldn't work for him. He wasn't the guy. He wasn't that sharp. He wasn't going to do it. And after the meeting, I went down to Bill's office, and I said, I don't know where you're going, but I'm not staying. So we need to get together and talk about what our options are. And we'd both observed in the Chicago market where Coldwell Banker dominated so much at one time, you can't even believe the numbers and profitability. And then RE/MAX came in and kicked their butt in a pretty short period of time. So we observed RE/MAX come into Chicago. There was no RE/MAX in the Twin Cities. One guy had opened an office before us and failed, but then we came back into the Twin Cities and had some success.
Some success. I would say you've had a lot of success.
Now, yes, you can say that.
Yeah, I think you're up to what, 40, maybe 45 offices here?
48, thank
48?
you. We
Okay.
just brought the ones in Brainerd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've just been, from an agent's perspective, I've admired you, your growth. I've been with you now almost 12 years and admired what you've done. And one thing that I've always found to be, that I've had probably the most respect for is you always hire full-time agents. You're not into the part-time agents, you hire professionals, and I'm surrounded with, 1,500, almost 2,000 professionals here, real estate professionals. And one of the things that has really bothered me about the real estate business, especially in recent times, I think I heard a statistic somewhere that 80-some% of agents today have less than 5 years of experience in this business. So tell me a little bit about your philosophy on that and why you do that.
Let's go with another statistic where over 80% of the people that get licensed are gone in 4.5 years. And if I was going to have my tooth fixed, I don't want a dentist that works 1 day a week and can't service me because he can't find daycare that day.
Right.
I don't want that. And professionalism was one of the first areas that were important to Bill and I, because we didn't like the concept of part-time agents. So the average RE/MAX agent sells 16 houses. The average RE/MAX Results agent sells 24 houses. And the average Keller Williams agent sells 8 point something. And those numbers are fairly, the 8 to 6 is fairly common for other companies because they don't care who they hired. And now we have companies that are basically MLMs and they don't care at all who they hire because they might make $1 on them somewhere down the line. And so I didn't want my friends and family working with a part-time realtor. So let's have full-time realtors. And we've just felt that way all the time because I just, you can go down the line of the people that are important to us, doctors, lawyers, nurses. I want one that's educated and knowledgeable. And if you don't do your job every day, how can you know the market? If you haven't listed a house in 4 months, you have no idea what's going on. And if you don't show houses literally every day, you don't feel those minor swings in the market. So 3 weeks ago, the market slowed down. Is it slow? No. Is there still going to be multiple offers? Quite possibly, depending upon the price point. But you got to have that feeling. And so when you're talking to your seller saying, do you want to get it sold this year or next year? Because how we price it will determine if it sells yet this year. It's up to you. And you can't make that stuff up. That's learned experience, and I think that's invaluable.
That statement, that answer is exactly why I have so much respect for you, why I work for you, and why I'm proud to work for RE/MAX Results.
Thank
and that's your culture, and you choose to have full-time professional agents, and I'm proud to wave your flag. So thank you for that.
Cool.
What, in your opinion, why do you think our industry suffers from such low-quality, unprofessional agents? And it's just something that has just baffled me.
No. So if you go to work for, who should we pick on next? Edina Realty. So you go to work for Edina Realty, and you're on a 50-50 commission split. And you sell 4 houses before you go out of business. just made 20 grand. I don't care.
Yeah.
20 grand, there's more behind him. And so the concept of the lower quartile, the agents who don't perform, are very profitable for brokers. And it's just a financial business model where they don't care. Sell a few houses, go away, we'll bring more in. If you want to sell a lot of houses, we love you, you can stay too. But we don't tolerate the bottom feeders, because our economic arrangement, if you don't pay us, you can't work here. And if you sell one house every 4 months, you can't afford to work here, so goodbye.
And ultimately, it's the consumer that suffers, right?
Absolutely.
And that's why I'm here today talking to you. It's about the consumer, and I think we've lost that. I think in this business, we've lost the fact that it's about the consumer, not the broker and the realtor.
Let me challenge you on that statement. I don't think we ever had it.
I would agree.
I don't think when I started with the Spring Company, which was one of the first companies at Coldwell Banker, I worked in a bullpen next to the municipal liquor store in Columbia Heights, and I came in and sold some houses. And I was the second best agent in the office after a few months. And there were two gals that eventually were a little better than I were, but most of the people didn't sell. I don't know what they came there for. I don't know. They just, maybe if my aunt sells, I'll get one. And there just wasn't a sense of building your business, prospecting. How do I learn the most so I can help people the most? There just wasn't that sense. It was just, old people and weirdos.
So if there's one thing you wish that the consumer was aware of that you see happen every day in this industry, what would that one thing be?
Representation. So I bought a house recently in Arizona. The market is so insane, I can't even tell you. And I've had the same agent. I've done a number of transactions, and I have an agent that I respect, Beth Lyle. And she says, if you want this house, and it wasn't on the market yet, but there are going to be a boatload of offers on it. She says, here's the number. And it was absurd. It was so much over list, but I trusted her. And I got the house. And my wife's in heaven. And the house I had a year earlier sold for $360,000 more than we paid for it. That's the real estate market in Arizona. And if you're not with somebody plugged into it, you wouldn't get it. And if you're with somebody that was marginal, they don't get it. She's on top of it. She knows what's going on. She does lots of transactions. Let me say that again. Transactional experience is invaluable. If the sales executive that you choose to do business with isn't doing transactions, I'm worried. So one of the things that we do on that topic that makes us so different than other companies, we do have some new people, but they're on teams and they're led by somebody and they go out on appointments with somebody and their transactions are supervised by team leaders. So we do have a few people, but you're not getting stuffed with somebody that doesn't know what day of the week it is, because they're coached appropriately, and that's how we're able to continue to grow. But the consumer doesn't lose. They get experienced representation.
So you said her name was Beth, is that correct?
Yeah.
So you said you trusted Beth.
Yeah.
What was there one single thing that established that trust?
The way she talked to me.
Okay. I guess the underlying question is, what separates a great agent from a good agent? What is that differentiation?
Well, some people want different types of personalities and what they perceive to be service level. I want market knowledge. I want somebody that I can trust and respect on what they know. And it's just important. And she knew the market. I knew her broker. I like that. I like knowing that her broker's been there for a long time and will continue to be there for a long time. I like the solidness of the company, and I like the individual's performance, and she's done a lot of transactions for us.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about where you've been, kind of where we are today. I kind of want to jump in and talk a little bit about, well, let's just I guess, further elaborate on the current real estate market. Just give me your overall thoughts on, do you ever think we'll see a market like we saw in 2021? What do you think maybe next year will look like? And how has COVID affected all of this?
I don't think COVID's had anything to do with it. You can say, well, people got more into their house a little bit because they were in it, but COVID hasn't altered my lifestyle one bit. When it hit the fan, I stayed home for 4 or 5 days, and I went, I can't live like this. I'm going back to work, and I paid no attention. I don't care what happens in restaurants, grocery stores. If I get it, I get it. I've had a good life. I don't give a hoot. But that's me. So I never had much of an impact on it, and because our business was declared, necessary, we were open, and I'm not going to have my front desk working if I'm staying home because I think I'm going to get the gout or whatever you get from COVID. So I just continued to work, and the market is based upon a phenomena that's not being repaired. And this has to do with politics, which is hard for us to control. As you drive around the Twin Cities, how many apartment buildings do you see? And when you drive around the Twin Cities, how many affordable townhomes and condominiums do you see? None. And so if you do the math on an apartment building, 18 units, 28 units, whatever you want, at the end of 15 years, the person living in it has no equity. If they'd have bought a house, they'd be up $300,000. 300,000 times 18 units, it's gigantic. Millions moving to billions of dollars that we're ripping out of younger people's lives because we won't build affordable housing. Why? Because there's more money in it for national developers who are able to hornswoggle people, and then the people in the city feel higher density, more tax dollars. I don't know. I think they're nuts, but what do you know? But the apartments are killing us, and we're not building affordable housing. And my son bought a house which is livable, marginal, in Otsego. And that's where you got to go to get a house anywhere near $300,000. So he got a new construction for $360,000 and a heck of a house, great place for him to raise his 2 kids and dog. But that house in Plymouth would have been $800,000.
Yeah,
Something's peculiar, but they're building apartment buildings in Plymouth, and those people are getting screwed, and that breaks my heart.
So in all of your years in this business, what do you think has been the biggest change that has affected the real estate market and the way we do business?
Technology. I'm so old, we used to have a book, and we'd get the MLS sheet and we'd put it in our book. And so that's how we tracked what was available. And then they started printing the books, which was a big plus for me, because I never put my pages in a book. It was too annoying for me. I did my real estate when I was selling houses off the Star and Tribune Sunday newspaper. Open houses, new listings. That was easier than looking at a book. And then the computer came in and the paper rolled, and that was the big change, and it continues to be the change. Like I said, I'm online constantly. I could list a house in San Diego because I look at houses for sale in San Diego. I can tell you what's a good price or a bad price on a house in San Diego. Why? Because I'm online twice. And this might freak everybody out just a little bit. I'm obsessed with Detroit, Michigan. I look at real estate in Detroit constantly because for $49,900 you can buy a story and a half with a detached garage that's nice. And for $200,000 you can buy you can buy a heck of a house. And I'm just enamored with that. The prices in Detroit have literally tripled in the last 3-4 years. But the low-end houses have went from $10,000 to $30,000. So they're still just insane to me. There are 70,000 vacant lots in Detroit. There are 30,000 vacant homes, and there are approximately 50,000 vacant commercial buildings. So people who are from a different world remember a brand of a car called Packard. And it was a very desirable car, named for many, many years. And where they built Packards in Detroit, everything's still there. Vandalized and brutalized, but it's just an amazing, unusual city. Population right now is about 650,000. At one time, 1960, the wealthiest city in the world with 1.7 million. And so all of you who drive non-American cars, please take note of that.
Interesting. And going back to you said the biggest change has been technology. I think you've done a wonderful job as a leader embracing technology, bringing in those that know more than you about technology and implementing that into the company. And frankly, I'm out of tune in some of this technology, and I'm having to bring in some younger people as well. So I think you've done a great job of that. Along those lines, what do you think has been the biggest constant in real estate since you've been in this business? What has there always been that's just kind of been the same year in and year out?
Well, whether you're doing a good job of representing your client. And representing your client includes staying in touch with your client. Just because they bought a house, they're still your client. And you still got to talk to them a couple times every year. And you still got to check in, and you still got to send them information. I know when I was an active sales associate, I sent people the data on their neighborhood for twice a year, what's sold, what's active, just educating them on your neighborhood. So I still treat my clients like that. I grew up in, as I was telling you earlier, Northeast Minneapolis, and most of my friends were, blue collar rednecks like I were, and they only wanted to know two things. How much money do I need and what will my payment be? That's it. I don't need to know anymore. You tell me if the house is okay. You tell me what I should pay for it. You tell me where we should buy. And occasionally they had a specific geographic area, but they wanted coaching on what should I pay and how do I finance it. And to some extent, I still think that's very important. In this market, with the difficulty of multiple offers, you got to trust your agent. And you got to be able to communicate with the sales executive, no, I really want this house. And so the house in Arizona, she knew I wanted that house. So it isn't what are you paying for it, it's what do you need to pay to get it. And multiple offers can be crazy. But once again, if you pay $380 or $400, 8 years from now, no one's going to give a hoot. It ain't going to make any difference. And it ain't going to make any difference to you. You got the house. One of the things that we forget sometimes about housing, because we're always looking at the economics and all that, it's your home. It's where you're going to spend more than 1/3 of your life. And if you're raising a family, it's the cornerstone of what you have and where you live. And so get something you feel comfortable in. And if you have a little trouble making the payments at first, that's life. I know I did. So just get what you can. Your income will catch up unless you're a deadbeat.
You brought up a good point there. One of the things you said is you need to trust your agent. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think trust is at an all-time low right now in our industry. I think that this industry, frankly, John, I was ready to kind of throw in the towel on this industry this year. I think that it's gotten to be a slimy, lack of a better term, used car salesman business. And I think that agents were just in a hurry to get a deal done this year. They were just telling their clients what they wanted to hear in order to get a transaction done. We had fewer homes to sell and a lot more agents trying to sell those homes. So there was a dogfight out there, and they were doing everything they could to do it, to get it done. So I want you to elaborate a little bit more on that trust piece, and just talk to me a little bit more about how maybe that agent in Arizona earned your trust, and how agents out there can become more trustworthy.
Stay in touch with your client, provide them information, and represent them. There's a difference between showing houses and representing. There's a difference between listing houses and representing. It's the same way. Have you ever worked with lawyers?
Unfortunately, yes.
Are they all good?
I have 2 in the family, so I have to say yes.
Yeah, and I've had a variety of different legal experiences, and for example, our in-house counsel is fabulous at understanding our customer. Sales executives, our customer results. And I've had contentious legal situations where, I needed somebody much different. And so out of 100 lawyers, what percent of them should get an A grade? Well, I don't think it's a lot different from the real estate agents. 15-20% get an A or A minus, and with a lot of lawyers, they just go through the motions. Or they have odd areas of expertise that aren't indicative of skillfulness. So I think there's a similarity in the same thing when you go to the doctor's office. If you have a regular physician, my doctor has been my primary care physician for over 25 years. He's the best. And other doctors say, he's the best at diagnosis. He's just a genius at diagnosing things. Kind of like that from my doctor, where he goes, okay, you need to go see the spinal guy because I can't fix that. I want that. I want that from my real estate agent. You need to go get this. You need to get this fixed. I've got some ideas on financing. And like my son, do you ever consider getting out of the Twin Cities area? We're not finding what you want in Woodbury. Mm-hmm. Maybe you might even need to look at Wisconsin if you need to go east. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of skill to give your consumer, and I think that's what you need to do. You need to be trusted and knowledgeable about price points and options and time on the market so you can give your client advice.
Trust and knowledge, I think those are 2 really important words. And one thing you brought up, and I think it's a great analogy, is the legal profession. And I've always said to my clients, look, God forbid I ever find myself in a charge of a criminal activity. I want the best criminal defense attorney with his 3-piece suit and his cufflinks and his Harvard law degree to defend me, right? I don't want that divorce attorney. I don't want the medical malpractice attorney. I want somebody that specializes in what I've been charged with, and I want him to go into that case with a swagger and an ability to defend me to the best of his ability. And I just think so many people are just choosing their brother or their sister or their aunt or their uncle or their friend or their neighbor to represent them in a purchase in an area that they just don't know anything about. And I'm seeing a lot of that, and maybe you can comment a little bit on that.
Well, but you just described it, that I have a friend of mine who I've known for holy buckets, 40 years, back from my X-rated days when my friends had some problems with legalities. And I met him when he was a young man and a lawyer just starting out, and he became one of the top attorneys in the United States. And I don't need him because I'm not in that kind of problem anymore, but there's only one person I would call if I have a problem. And over the last 30 years, the times I've called him just to let myself talk out a situation to get his ideas, because I had some issues with business partners, consolidation, stuff happens. And I just trust him. Yeah. And we're back to that same thing. I trust him.
Yeah.
And if he told me something, and if he said, stop it, I'd stop. Even if my heart goes, I don't want to stop. It's good. No. That's what our agents have to do, our sales executives have to do, and it's the lawyer has to do.
So I want to talk just for a moment about the future of real estate. This is a pretty hot topic right now. Zillow was going to take over the world of real estate over the last 12 months, and we all found out that was not a fact. Just give me your opinion, your crystal ball answer of what you think the next 5 years of real estate is going to look like.
Here's the thing. I can give you a list of real estate companies that have went into guaranteed sales and buying real estate, and they all fail because the market changes. And those boobs paid retail price, and the market just barely adjusted, but it adjusted. Time on the time on the market. And if you have quite a few millions of dollars of real estate and the market time just doubled and you're borrowing the money, oops, there goes the profit. And so their concept is not one that I endorse, and I never did, and I never have. The other organizations that have done that, once again, there have been many local companies that had guaranteed sale programs that flopped. The national real estate trend is indicative of the issue we talked about, which is a shortage of affordable housing. So if there's not enough housing, what's going to happen to the price of housing?
It's going to go up.
So if we have a major recession, will real estate continue to go up? No, it'll flatten out. But you won't have a 2008 and 2009 again, because there's not all the criminals that did the crooked mortgages. So when the market corrects because of demand, or inflation gets too high, or interest rates get too high, there'll be a correction. There always has been, and there always will be. It won't be as crazy as the last one. It'll just be a flattening and maybe a slight decrease. The properties that are more likely to appreciate less are upper bracket properties. But if you have a $300,000 house in Richfield, it ain't ever going to be a $250,000 house in Richfield, because I'll buy it at $280,000. So if it goes down, I'm buying it, because you can't make that. You can't build that. You can't live in a neighborhood like that. And so I don't see anything real dramatic. Demand changes, desirability changes. The one property that I think is fascinating and that I was so skeptical of many, many years ago are townhomes without basements. I don't know, it didn't seem right, because I'm an old dude and I always knew about basements. But they're killing it with seniors.
Mm-hmm.
They're killing it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to go down the basement.
Right.
And they don't have that much junk where they need a basement. And so one-level townhomes that's just what communities are doing to bring in more mature people.
Yeah, that seems to be the hot product right now.
Yeah,
for sure.
It really is.
For sure. You brought up one thing. You talked a little bit about guarantees and Zillow and other guarantees that have been out there. And I just want to circle back. You said you had a little bit of a violent background, right? I'm wondering, I bet you can still hold your own, right? I bet you can still. Are you a southpaw? Are you righty? What are you?
Well, I made a promise to my counselor, Dr. Mark. The last time I got in a road rage scuffle, I told him about it, and he says, "Are you dumb? 1, you're going to get shot. 2, you're going to get beat up. 3, you're going to get in the newspaper." And he went down the list, and he says, "Any of that sound worth beating some guy up because he gave you the finger?" And I went, "No, I'm done." So I don't do that anymore. I swore off violence and have worked diligently on my happiness. And so that's the most important thing to me now. Am I going to be happier today than I was yesterday? And anger doesn't support happiness. And so I was joking about this with somebody yesterday, where, now if somebody gives me the finger, I laugh at them and keep driving. I don't care. Go ahead. But that took me a long time to get there. And, without my psychologist, I wouldn't have made it.
Well, I want you to do me one favor. I don't ask a lot of you.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I've asked you for a favor.
Yeah.
If you ever see me on a billboard offering guarantees, if you ever see me dancing around on a TV commercial doing the Hanson, I want you to open up that anger bottle and empty it on me. You have permission to kick my ass if I ever do something like that. How's that?
Back to Dr. Mark. I said, I made the deal not to beat people up, okay? So we got that deal, and I says, what about, though, if I cornered Chris Lindahl in a parking lot and I disrobed him under force? And then we made him do the Lindahl to find out once and for all, is it Big Chris or Little Chris? And he said I couldn't do that. He says he thought that was still too violent.
I think we all know the answer to that. Well, before we leave, there's just a couple last-minute questions. If you were to change one thing, just anything about the real estate industry right now, what would that be?
Oh, it's very philosophical, but at some point, if you haven't sold X amount of houses, turn your license in. And it'll never happen, but there's just so much mediocrity out there. And like you were saying, when you're a professional trying to sell enough houses to raise your family and really do it, when you deal with a boob, it just takes the life out of you, because then you have to do both sides of the transaction. And I would just wish there would be some way that we could upgrade our industry. Now, that was the purpose of RE/MAX results, to provide a point of differentiation so that the consumer can pick a company where you're more likely to hire somebody that sells houses. And that has been what has made RE/MAX the number one company in the world.
And your mission statement is really eliminate boobs.
Yeah.
So just to kind of wrap this up, and I'm going to wrap up all of my podcasts this way. I study success. I study leadership. I study just great entrepreneurs. I like to read a lot. And if you were to just give one piece of just life advice, business advice to anybody, what would that be?
I think a topic that isn't discussed enough is an older phrase called self-talk. And it's, what are you telling yourself? And so every morning on the way to work, I go, oh, darn it, I'm looking forward to this. I got a great day ahead of me. And I don't feel that way every day going home from work. But your self-talk about who you are. Number one, you got to take care of yourself. Number two, you take care of your spouse. Number three, you take care of your kids. Number four, you take care of your soul. But still, number one, you gotta take care of yourself. You gotta be okay with who you are, where you're going, how you feel. Are you getting correct medical attention for ailments? You gotta put yourself at the top of the list so you can contribute to all those other areas that matter. So listen to your self-talk. Listen to how happy you are. Happiness is, like I said, it's all that matters to me. I just want to be happy.
It's a great answer. It's a
Thank
great
you.
answer. Well, I appreciate your time.
Oh, I'm honored.
Thanks for being raw. And
Do you think so?
yeah.
I
We-
bet
we
they
may
cut
have to-
out the Chris Lindahl story.
I hope not. I hope not. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I enjoy it.
And look forward to many, many more years with RE/MAX results.
And just as you all may know, he is the best of the best. We don't have any more sales executives that are more grounded or more knowledgeable than Wade. So just a really great person to consider if you're looking at some opportunity.
Thanks, John. That means
All
a
right.
lot coming from you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Raw Real Estate Podcast. If you have any feedback for this episode or want to suggest a future topic or even possible guests, head to wadehansen.com. There you can get links to my Facebook and LinkedIn pages. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to see the video version of this podcast too. Again, thank you for listening to the Raw Real Estate Podcast. We'll talk soon.